we ideated on, okay, fine, we'll just do this Wakanda fantasy where we are just separatists and we just get granted our own land. Do we have the lumber? Do we have the electricity? Do we have the power? Do we have the resources? So I don't know if we even have
This
an
structure.
economic feasibility, a structure to even sustain this idea of having our own, so to speak. I don't know.
You're right to some degree because we're seeing that in South Africa. We're seeing that in Zimbabwe. We're
Correct.
seeing when we're kicking the colonizer out, we don't have the
Mm-hmm.
resources, the
Mm-hmm.
education, the knowledge to farm, to manufacture, to do all these things. So all
Yes.
those elements actually matter in the event that we were to be separatists. And without that, we would have just a crumbling community because everyone would default to what they know. And it's not that they want it to be like that. They don't know anything different. They don't have the tools or the resources or the education to do something different. It's almost like you have to be strategic if you were to even do something like that to ensure that you're gaining that knowledge and you know what needs to be played out, what moves need to be made, who needs to be able to do what, because before you even go off to do something like that,
Mm-hmm.
you would
Mm-hmm.
need that information to go about that. But it makes me think about too when you see now you're starting to see white settlements and you're seeing them to go segregate for themselves. And I've just been curious with how that's going to pan out for them. Just like, And they
Mm-hmm.
often aren't the most educated white people either. So it's just like,
Mm-hmm.
well, good luck with that. You guys just, hey, you'll just
Yeah,
have
they
your non-seasoning. We're not bothered. Like, no one's hurt or anything like that. Enjoy yourselves. Good luck with that.
There's a conversation to be had.
Oh, that's hot. That's hot.
Yo, what up? It's your boy Chalo. That's my co-host Rashawn. It's a Conversation to Be Had podcast. We're still celebrating Black History Month. Today's topic is a good one. We're gonna get into did integration destroy the Black community? So we're gonna bring our guests in. What's up, guys?
Hey, y'all.
How you doing? How you doing?
Hey, good evening, everybody.
Integration. The question at hand, and I've heard it discussed on many different occasions, is did the end of segregation actually do more harm than good to the Black community? We'll start off with you, Doc. What do you think? Was it a good or a bad thing?
I've never had this discussion. Just on the face of it,
Mhm.
being the segregation, I believe it. It's like tearing down the Berlin Wall. I believe that it opened up opportunities. I believe that, in general, the access to more aspects of life that have been closed off was a benefit, more of a benefit than a detriment. It definitely opened up criticism, and integration caused a lot of people to see things that they hadn't seen before. And we're still dealing with the consequences of that today. We enter spaces where they think we don't belong, and we're dealing with backlash with that. But I think that on the whole, the access to the parts of society that have been blocked off, it was a benefit.
Okay. What you think, Marie?
I think it was a plus and a delta. I think that while there was benefits from ending segregation, I think it impacted Black infrastructure. So you've seen a lot of layoffs. Instead of integrating Black schools, you've seen Black schools shut down. You've seen Black teachers being laid off, Black principals being laid off. You've seen people integrating into a culturalist culture to some degree. So there was not a lot of discipline, I think, within the white culture. And I think at the time, the Black culture was more conservative. They had a higher marriage rate than even white culture did. But then again, there were benefits, but there were definitely deltas too. So I think it's like a mixed bag. There's like unintended consequences.
Okay.
Yeah.
What you-
Yeah.
I had this discussion before, and I actually stood on the side of that
was necessary. I initially agreed with the doctor, like when I first did my research, but then when I did the numbers and everything, and I found out, like Marie said, that at that time, 70% in 1960 had both parents in there, and today it's 44%. And the layoffs, we integrated to their schools. It wasn't the other way around. So administrators, principals, teachers were laid off, and also the black dollar didn't circulate in our community anymore. But I do believe it had to happen because of resources. Anytime you have tribal knowledge and minds, people are going to look at it like that, and they're going to find an enemy. And so I always felt like if we stay separate, white people were going to always attack us, like Tulsa and like other places, Rosewood. I think those things would happen. So, but the consequences, I don't know if it's accidental or incidental rather, but the consequences with education-wise, we fell off. Family structures broke down, and also entrepreneurship went way down when we integrated.
I'll jump in. Hey, y'all, Shannon. Oh man, this is one of my favorite topics. I don't think that the question is whether integration was right, because it was. I think the question is, I guess, three-part: what we lost, what we gained, and honestly, I think the bigger question is who controlled the terms, right? I think the reality is that integration was, in fact, morally necessary, but morally necessary does not mean socially simple. Does that make sense? It solved one injustice, but what it still did was it exposed others that we as a community were just not structurally prepared to address. So I think that is what we're left with a legacy of issues that we were so unprepared to socially address. And how could we? Because we didn't know what was on the other side, the proverbial grass being greener on the other side. We just knew that in a highly inequitable situation. But like Dr. King said, I feel that I integrated my people into a burning house. And that is essentially what happened. And to your point earlier, Carol Moseley Braun said that segregation created a sheltered market. We saw that the dollar circulated in our community so much. But when we became enamored with the other side, who didn't want us in their stores, didn't want us in their businesses, didn't want our money. Well, they did want our money. Ultimately, it was a trap, right? We bolstered their economic security while depleting ours. So I'll just kind of leave it right there.
And kind of to piggyback off what you said, when I initially got this topic, the first people I asked were my mom and my dad. You know what I mean? And so, my mom was much like what you said. There was plus and there were negatives. I think it was mentioned before. We didn't integrate. They didn't integrate to our schools. We integrated into theirs. So, like you were saying, I think Ms. Marie was saying, black teachers, principals, they lost their jobs. So basically, I felt like a lot of black institutions were dismantled due to integration. Now, I do agree with you, Shannon. It was a moral decision. It was the right thing to do morally. I do agree with that. But one thing that you kind of brought up was Martin Luther King's quote about how we integrate into a burning house. And I had another one, too, that I really liked. It was from Malcolm X. He was kind of criticizing like the psychological effects of systemic racism and how we Black Americans were conditioned to kind of associate everything with white was better. And he said something. He said, the white man's ice is colder. His sugar is sweeter. His water is wetter. His medicine is better. His food is better. His houses are bigger and his jobs are better. And I think that's kind of one of the things that we lost when integration happened. We forgot about our own communities in a lot of ways. And I think that's one of the mistakes that we made on our part. What about you, Cello?
Well, for me, I think I've listened to this argument a lot of times, and I think there's a difference between integration and inclusion. I think we were searching for inclusion and we got integration. You know what I mean? So in that integration, what that did was took away any source of power in our community that we could possibly have, because you took away, when you integrate, you took away the stature of like the guy who owns the grocery store that he was selling to the black people, but now they're going to Walmart now because they can. Before, when they couldn't, he was the only, one of the only suppliers, and that was a business for him and a few others, just like with everything else that we weren't allowed to do. So we had to basically do it within our community. And a lot of other races still do that. Like, I mean, the Chinese community, you can go to Chinatown. They don't have to leave. Everything that they need is in their own community. A lot of your Hispanic communities, they don't have to leave. Everything that they need is in their own community. Our community, you can have a predominantly black community. I mean, you can look it up. Any predominantly black community, the amount of black ownership in that community is under 30%. You see what I'm saying? And so, like, if you look at other minorities' community, their ownership of their community is way higher, especially the Asian community. So, I think that
what you're saying.
Go ahead.
No, so what you're saying is true, but when I hear it, I'm thinking of the underlying issues. Like, there weren't African American banks and clinics and doctors and lawyers because they didn't have access to those sectors in those schools. In Chinatown, they've got Asian doctors, lawyers, and they have their own banks. So integration was a necessary evil to get access to the higher education and these other aspects of life that allow you to build wealth. Definitely the mechanics of how it unfolded are not, not optimal. They're definitely suboptimal. But I think the comparison to other communities like the Jewish community and other communities that had access to all the things that black people didn't have prior to segregation, again, that's putting them 50 years ahead. And, we're, as always, behind the 8 ball.
Well, no, because if you think about it, if you look at those other communities that I named, Hispanic, Asian, how many Asian senators do you know? How many Hispanic senators do you know? They're better. They're still. What am I? I don't understand. What I'm trying to get it. What I'm trying to say is, like, they're still community based, but they haven't. That they paid the price for that. You see what I'm saying? Like we're integrated totally into society. So like, there's more black senators and black congressmen and people of governor, mayors, governors, you name it. And you don't see that in abundance in those communities. But like I said, if you go to those communities, they're all self-sufficient. Like, if you come to our community thrives on someone else's business. You understand what I'm saying? Like, you're going to go there, and the black guy's not going to own the stores. We're not going to own the store. We're not going to even own the properties that the people stay in. The properties that the people even stay in are not owned by black people in a predominantly black community. You see what I'm saying?
That's true, because like, if you think about it, like the goods that we buy, whether it's hair care, Asians sell it to us. The chicken that we eat, Arabics sell it to us. Like, if you go to, even now, it's black barbershops. It's Arabics and Mexicans now that are cutting black hair. So our community, even if you do shop at your community, it's not your people selling you goods. So I don't. Your question was, Maria, you asked why is that? I don't know. Some of it has to be intent, because as far as it happens in different sectors of the United States, different areas. So some of it has to be intentional to a degree.
Oh, absolutely. You have to think about it too, that African Americans are getting a loan. They're denied more frequently than Asians or white people. If you're foreign, you can come to this country, you can still get a loan when a black person can't. You have to look at that. That's been like that historically. So it's, even if you eliminate racism, or excuse me, you eliminate, I guess, segregation, you didn't eliminate structural racism. In addition to that, I don't necessarily think we were looking for inclusion. We were actually looking for the separate but equal to actually be equal. And that's why they allowed us to integrate, because they said, hey, so I'm not going to give you the same thing we have. You just use what we have, because you're not going to have the new books. You're not going to have all these shiny things that we have and our white children have, but you can come use their stuff, because that's really how we landed there. It wasn't necessarily that we wanted to be included. We just wanted equality. We wanted to be equal, equity. We wanted our tax dollars. We wanted the same benefits that the white person down the street got with their tax dollars, and we weren't getting that. And I think that that's the part where it's like, even when we talk about it, it's important to talk about how we got there, how we legitimately got there. Not so much that, oh, okay, we integrated, but why did we do that? Why did that come about? How did we land there, as opposed to just being able to have the same treatment, or even too, our communities being respected per se, because even too, when we did have something, someone came for it for one reason or another. Someone was jealous, and we still seen that. We still seen, even after integration, we still seen where our communities were being bombed. If you look at like the MOVE bombing in Philadelphia on a regular basis, anytime Black people do well, even after integration, it's suspicion, or someone's out to destroy it.
Right.
And I, oh, go ahead. I'm sorry.
Yeah, I was going to say, I think that as a Black community, we've bought into a lot of gaslighting that we ourselves even inflict on each other. I think that we have this idea that we have not tried to build broad economic stability, and clearly we have an active memory historically that we've tried to do independently forever. And every time we have, it has been met with resistance. So a lot of the blight, a lot of the community depletion that we see. I mean, I'm friends with an abundance of elected officials, and they even agree that this is purposely done. So after a while, you're so demoralized that you say, why bother? Why try? And then there's this idea that somehow our lack of advancement or lack of trying seems to be something that's cultural. But no, it's not. If it is cultural, it's white supremacy. And me just speaking as Shannon, what I will say is this, is that what white supremacy says is this. I will not use the word I want to use, but you were brought here to amplify my superiority. And because you defied that, I will gaslight you. I will make you believe that it is all your fault. But in fact, I am doing everything to block you from defying the very thing I set you here for. You are obsolete farm machinery. And since you did not agree to do the thing that I said you'll do, I'll kill you. I'll kill you slowly, and I'll gaslight you all the way to the grave. So that's just what I see personally. I live in Woodlawn. I live on a side of Woodlawn that is gentrified. And me being a Black person, a lot of times we're not lumped into being gentrifiers because we bear the complexion of the original residents, but I'm a gentrifier. We all are. They priced everybody out of this community. And now all of a sudden that you have a whole different economic group coming in, oh, coffee shops are being built. Now they're talking about stores and all these other things. But where were those things 20 years ago? Right? So again, I think that we can't forget the fact that this is by design,
No, absolutely agree. I absolutely agree with you. I feel like we've had movements to unify the Black community.
Yeah.
And like you said, every time they've been met with resistance. I mean, we can go back to the 60s with the Black Panther Party. You know what I mean? They were huge. And, they were intervened with the CIA, with the COINTELPRO.
COINTELPRO.
So, yeah. So, I mean, I feel like we're more targeted than a lot of the people that you were saying, Charlo, like, Jewish members of society, the Asian members of society. I feel like we're more targeted because I feel like that, that unification within our communities to them is a top priority not to happen. And white supremacy, as Shannon has said, so I definitely agree with that, but I gotta say, I feel like we're more targeted. That's why you don't see the type of headway that you want to see right now?
We are targeted, but it's a calculated targeting that we could avoid with a different mentality amongst ourselves. You see, if you look at the statistics for and I get this from the car business. I sold cars for 12 years. They teach you classes specifically on selling to the African American person. Specifically that's it. And it's all based around glamour and gold, the shine. It's nothing technological, nothing, that has to really do with the value of the car besides how it looks. And that's how they teach you to sell to Black people. And when I first went to this class, you go every year, I was really kind of offended the first time. Like, dude, that's racist. How could they think like that? But doing my job, I saw how they thought like that because it was basically, true. They don't come up with them statistics out of the air. They don't come up with those philosophies out of the air. It's basically they look at the way we react to stuff and they prey on that. It's just like we could take women. A woman will get in the car when she's looking at a car. The first thing she does is flip the visor down to see if it has a mirror. You could deny it all you want, but I sold cars for 12 years, and the amount of women that didn't do that might have been three. They study habits and they manipulate and they move around that. We're the highest consumer of luxury goods out of all the minorities. We're the highest consumer without the highest medium income, and that belongs to the Asians. You see what I'm saying? We're fascinated with that shine, and we'll go out of our way to do it. And that mentality doesn't encourage financial wealth. It depletes it. You see what I'm saying? Like, we don't we go out of our way, we spend out of our means for a look rather than for survival purposes. It isn't like buying that car because we got it. We got to have something to go to work. We buying the car because it looks good. If it was just something to go to work, we'd be in something way cheaper. Does that make sense?
I think you're perpetuating a stereotype.
I
feel like it's a trope to me.
They do classes on it, and I did it for 12 years, and
I believe you. I worked in the automotive industry for 10 years, working directly for an OEM, and I helped dealerships sell vehicles. At best, I'm not saying that what they did isn't true, or what you're saying occurred isn't true or anything. However, as far as targeting consumers in the digital world, there's so many ways to target consumers, but even African Americans, we only make up about 15%. So there's no way at all we could ever be the largest consumer. We might consume a lot of luxury goods, but we could never, because we don't have the numbers.
According to ratio, yes, we do. They according to the number of us that there are and the percentage that we spend on luxury items compared to any other race, we're the highest.
So you're saying there's an
exaggerated because there's more. You can't say white. Hold on, listen. You can't say that Black people spend the most money on anything that white people spend money on too, because there's more white people. So that's why I got down to the percentage. That's what I'm saying. The percentage of our people that spend on luxury high items is higher than any other race.
What's your source?
It was several sources I looked up because I had to, I had to break it down to that.
I want to have some free time. I'm just not. I don't believe that we're the largest luxury consumer. I do think that there's a subgroup, just like any other group, just like there's a subgroup of poor whites that do certain things. There's a subgroup of within every ethnicity, every group, there's a subgroup that do certain things that fall into certain stereotypes. That's where those stereotypes come from. But I think that it just in general, of course, yes, they do pay attention to the identity of the people they're marketing to, how to market to them. When Obama was on his second campaign, I worked for his campaign. And even in our, we had like a book they gave us. And in the book, there was a different verbiage that we were supposed to use when talking to Black people, which I thought was very interesting. And it was just how you say certain things, what would be appealing. And I think to some degree, even when you go back to the marketing in automotive, we found that there was a different way to talk to women, and we were more cognizant of it because women are starting to make more money, right? So they're also now decision makers. They hold the purse strings. So now we're looking at how can we make a shopping experience more comfortable for a woman? What does this consumer buy into? Things like that. So I respect that, and I know those things like that exist. But I don't think that we're just like the largest consumer of luxury goods, because it's almost as if we're saying that our community as a whole lacks substance, or we're not reasonable, or we're overspenders, or we're carrying a lot of debt, or the bulk of debt, things like that. To me, that play, and those are, to me, are tropes. They're stereotypes. They say that about us. And again, it exists. There's folks like that, but I don't think that speaks for the majority of us.
No, it see, you're failing to understand. Like, let me use my grandfather for example. My grandfather wasn't a rich dude, but he kept a new Lincoln. Every 3 years, he had a new Lincoln. Not a rich dude at all, but that's what he liked. And a lot of his friends, that's what they did. They bought, the latest car. Now, could they afford it? Yeah, but did they need it? No. But they like to look good. That's just what they do. It's habit. It's natural. I don't look at it as no stereotype because Black dudes drive Cadillacs. A lot of Black dudes drive Cadillacs. It's the status thing. It's not nothing because Cadillac makes the best car there is. It's all status. When you buy Benz, it ain't because Benz is nowhere near the best car. It's because it's Benz. And they know that, and they sell exactly on that. I did it for 12 years. They take surveys and they microcosm this stuff down to the wire, and they be right. You can say they stereotype or do whatever you want to believe, but I'm telling you the truth. They are right when they don't spend all that money for no reason on stereotypes and what they think, people are, motivations are. It be true.
You know what? You are making.
I mean, my people have come in there and embarrassed me to the hill because that's when I felt like man, this is racist. You can't say all Black people do this, or all Black people is this way. And I started seeing it like happen time and time again. Like, dang. Like, that's where they get it from. I understood, like, I'm not naive. I understood where it comes from because I'm watching it every day over and over and over again. And that's how they maneuver. They play the odds. If they see something happen over and over again, you can call it a stereotype if you want. They're going with, that's how it is. I mean, you can think it's a stereotype or feel it's unfair or whatever, but that's how they do their business on how people's motivations work.
So what you're saying actually reminds me of something that I was reading this weekend, and something to think about, and that's how our appearance affects our treatment. So when we go places, how we look, the car we have, how we're seen, how people see us, how white people see us, does impact how we're treated. You guys ever gone to nice restaurants and sometimes you see white people, they just got anything on, and you kind of, and then it's us, we're like dressed to the nine. I think one time I was at this place downtown, I think it's called Hugo Frog. I was downtown Chicago, and it was like the white folks, they just had whatever on. And everyone I was with, all African American, we all dressed, they got heels, pumps, and they just in t-shirts and jeans and sneakers. I think that what I'm taking from what you're saying is a reminder to me that we don't have the privilege of not being concerned about how our appearance affects our treatment. So when we go out to places, whether we want people to take us serious, think we have something, think we're about some business, something like that, to some degree, the car we have, how we dress, all of that comes with, I guess, having to be conscious of being Black, how we present ourselves in situations, how we show up, where white folks don't have to worry about that.
Do you all remember there was a document? No, maybe, so I know it was from the 1950s, and it was called "Selling to the Negro."
Yes, I remember that.
Yes, and that's very real. And I just remember this one scene where the Black man was trying on hats. And the narrator was saying, like, we can sell him this marked up hat because it makes him feel like he's arrived. So and I only use I statements from my
They played that
experience.
video in the class I'm talking about. They played
Yeah,
that.
mhm,
Yeah.
yeah.
With
And from
they
my
had the old
experience,
people. Go ahead.
no, go ahead. No, no, please go ahead.
Like they had they went back to the 50s to where
Mhm.
like appliances were just coming out. We were the biggest consumers of that. You could look it up. We were the biggest consumer, electronics, all that stuff. We are the biggest consumers for our population group. We're the biggest consumers of it.
Well,
They went back to the 50s with that. Like when stuff started, the inventions, microwaves, stereos, speakers, all that stuff. Like we bought that stuff. We're the biggest
mhm.
consumers of that.
Yeah, I feel like we're brand rich, but we're capital poor. Um, you know, when I go out and I see people, oh my God, like in these expensive labels from head to toe, which one looks ridiculous. But you're almost putting on a caricature of what you feel a rich person would look like. But it's about proximity, right? You're just trying to posture a signal that you arrive. But again, when you're talking about the people who have been deprived of tangible access to stability or wealth, of course they're going to project it in another type of way.
And I think that kind of like strengthens what Marie was just saying about how, as black people, we don't get the luxury to come outside looking bummy or anything like that. You know what I mean? As white people do. Like, you're right, man. Like, I worked in the hospitality business for years. I was a manager at a restaurant, and you would see white folks come in, dressed in, sandals and bummy shirts and ripped tees and everything like that. And they were served just fine, but it didn't matter. On Sundays when a lot of black people would come in dressed to the T's from church, got the women with the big hats and everything like that. And nobody wanted to serve those tables. But we do that, culturally. First, it's part of our culture, to dress up and make sure you look nice, and present yourself outside in a fashion, in a cleanly and upkept manner. But you got to think. I think a lot of that is because of white supremacy and the fact that we were looked down upon for so long, and denigrated for so long. So at this point, what we're doing is, hey, look, like Shannon was saying, we've arrived, and I think that's kind of we're making up for the fact that racism looks at us in a downward way. So I don't know. I can see both sides of the argument there.
No, I mean you're totally right. We do that, but I think the problem when we do it, like we go above and beyond, like we put ourselves in the danger zone to do that type of stuff. You know what I mean? Like how she was saying, designer. Like I'll be looking at it. I'll sit there sometimes. I'll sit in the store, and I'll sit there and I'll look at a kid, and he got $3,500 gym shoes on. Like that's a car.
Mm-hmm.
Like why you on the bus? Like you got $3,500 gym shoes on, and you getting on the bus? That doesn't make any sense.
But I think that's
when you come from like used to not having nothing, right? And then you get an opportunity to buy something, you will overspend your means. And a lot of people are.
But that's not everybody, though.
Like self-worth.
Thank you.
Yeah, they get tied up into their self-worth. They feel like they're important if they got expensive or designer things on, And some people, their self-worth is tied up in what they wear. And the neighborhood I grew up in, that's not uncommon. That was every day. People buying Jordans, but you Section 8, but you got on $300 pair of shoes and this, that, and a third. And I think what Charles is trying to say is that a lot of us was living beyond our means for materialistic things. You know what I mean? So this is not everybody's situation, but the neighborhood I grew up in, there was a lot of people that was living beyond.
Yeah, and I'm not down in it because to me it's normal. Yes, it's a normal thing to me, but I'm not going to be naive and don't think that my people don't do that like we do. I mean, I'm not going to deny it. I'm not going to call it a stereotype. It's the truth. If you go to the projects, when the projects was open, if you went to the project, you'll see some of the livest rides you've ever seen in your life. I'm lying, Mickey. You go to the projects in Chicago, you seeing $60,000, $70,000 Escalades, trucks and stuff in the projects, and they live there. And now you ask yourself, why do you got a $70,000, $80,000 truck and you live in the projects? That's stuff we do. Like that's normal to me. I don't look at it as like no stereotype because we do it. You know what I mean? It's not like I could deny it. I'm not gonna be naive to it. What I'm saying is like if we could put a discipline like other people, I mean not other people, but other races don't. They have a little more discipline when it comes to that kind of stuff.
But can I ask a question, though, Charles? Can I ask this question, Charles?
Go ahead.
Is it that they have more discipline or that they have more knowledge? Because I didn't really learn about money till 30 something. And if you don't have the knowledge, like the book Rich Dad Poor Dad, where do you get it from? How money works, how credit score works, how does savings works, how do Roth IRAs, how do these things work? You know, so where do you get the knowledge from unless you're around it? A lot of times people become what they see. So that's my question.
Well, you can have the knowledge, but you still like I just I read a lot, and I just study how millionaires have certain things in common, and from dealing with them, the thing is they stick to their guns. Like they set a budget, and they won't leave that budget by a penny. Like you got to be under it, or the deal's not happening. And I mean, they got the money to go over the budget. It isn't the fact that they don't have the money; it's that they have the discipline to stay within that budget. Like this is what I'm spending, and that's it. And they do that with everything, and so it becomes a habit in their life. And like there's certain habits that they learn. And they stick to it, and it's hard for the average man, to do.
Like there you go, man. Average is average, man. A millionaire's mindset is already the 1%. You've already claimed it. That's the 1% mindset. Yeah. And that's the discipline that you only find in 1% of the population, which you just described.
Exactly.
If you're making the top 1% income, then you more than likely also have the top 1% in discipline.
Can I ask you a question, Doc? And everybody, if you had the 1% mindset, you had to get it from somewhere, right? Like it just don't fall on you. You just don't naturally get it. You could search for it, but normally if you're around people who are like that, or you're in an environment where a majority of people like that, you can get the knowledge, and that can be your everyday, right? Because if it was just as simple as just being disciplined, I know people are disciplined, but they just don't have the knowledge of how to use money, how to it's real estate, the number one creator of millionaires in America. They just don't have the mindset. They don't have the knowledge. So they just keep everything in a mattress, or they go about, I just get a car. They just don't know. A lot of people don't know. I worked in a barbershop, and we had these arguments, and a lot of people, they just don't know how money works. I'm going to be honest with you, I didn't know till I was 30, like how everything worked and how, assets are very important. It's very important to have money than to look like you got money.
I meant financial discipline when I said discipline. But I mean, what you're still saying is true. There's different aspects of financial discipline. Like you can be disciplined with your spending and save and save and save, but saving is not how money grows. So you're right. You have to have access to operational knowledge on how to really make money work for you, which you can't find unless the people around you have that operational knowledge of how to make money work for you. So you're bringing up a very valid point. But it's also a moving target. The tricks of the trade that worked 20 years ago isn't what they did 40 years ago. It's not what they're doing today. So there's always going to be a large population who doesn't have access to the newest information on how to make money work for you. So I think it's a perpetual problem, one that plagues the past, present, and future.
And I agree with that. And I just want to kind of add on that is that I think that what we're missing and we're forgetting about is the history. We're talking about Black wealth. We got to look at the history, and we don't. And so you got to think, there's been a persistent wealth gap. Black households, they hold far less wealth than white households. But there was reasons for that. You had home ownership barriers back in the day, redlining. When it comes to home ownership barriers, lots of times, we have a higher mortgage denials that comes to owning a house. You got to, appraisals are far less.
Yeah, appraisals, stricter underwriting rules, policies.
Right, And lots of times, like Doc was saying, when it comes to banking, there's a lot of inequities there. We're more underbanked. We get higher loans. When we get a loan, we get it at a higher interest rate. So there's structures in place that hold us back that I think that have to be mentioned when we do talk about wealth in the Black community. It's not just all discipline. I don't think it's all discipline. I mean, discipline, that's something that anybody can do, but there are some barriers that are just there that are specifically designed to keep us, in my opinion, down.
See, that's what I'm saying. The discipline is not something everybody can do. It's not. I'm telling you, it's a hard thing. It's like, okay, you got the car you want. Okay, you telling you when you came in there, you said, I'm not spending over $500. I got the car you want. It's everything smell good. You done drove it. We love it. The bow is on it. I tell you, it's $505.65 a month. You buying it still?
Absolutely not. No, I'm not. That's exactly why I told my son I'm not. No, but so that's exactly why I went and made sure when my son got his car, I didn't get a loan through the dealership. I went to the bank, because I got a lower interest rate doing that. But I know that.
We're not talking about you putting the interest rate in it or anything. I'm saying your budget was $500 and we're $505.65 or whatever. So you're not buying the car
for $5 more?
Yeah.
I mean, $5. Yeah, for $5
yeah,
more.
See, that's exactly right.
But
what I'm trying to tell you is a millionaire. What I'm saying, Rashawn. You are just like normal people. That's what I'm trying to tell you. Millionaires have a certain discipline where they're not going over that 500.
I don't think that with the question, the way you phrased it, the way that you're asking $5,
it wasn't a trick question.
It doesn't matter. I don't think it was a trick question.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Because I knew you was gonna say like most people, like everybody I deal with every day.
That's not Black. Say I'm saying, but that's not Black people specifically though. That's most people. Yeah, everybody. You know what I mean?
I just used that as an example. I was just trying to.
When we talk about other groups, like we're talking about whites or we're talking about Jews, mostly Ashkenazi Jews hold the most wealth, which means European Jews. Those other Jews, a lot of them are on welfare. There's a large majority that are the highest welfare recipients and known for welfare fraud. Even whites, like I don't think a lot of times we look up, we don't never look down. Whites hold, majority of them, only 10% actually hold wealth. The ones you see on TV, the ones you see everywhere, the ones you're looking up, you might look across, but you're not looking down at those trailer parks, all those other places where they're doing bad. I live in Texas, right? When I used to work for Stellantis, I had the Southwest region. So I had Tennessee, Mississippi, Louisiana, Oklahoma. And when I tell you, I've seen some of the poorest whites on my way to a dealership to go do whatever. I think that oftentimes it's like Black this or in Black communities, this, that, or white communities. There's so many poor people within all these different groups, but you just don't see them. Even Asians, they can't all be blanketed in there. There are some Asians that they definitely have more wealth. In fact, Indians are dominating as opposed to, we would say, someone that was Cambodian. Filipinos have a higher wealth typically, but they also are adjacent to white people because they were colonized. There's so many different elements where there's so much context that goes with those conversations where we can't always say, well, this group does this or this group does that, or this is Black or this is white, because in all actuality, this is what it's like to be a part of a lower socioeconomic background. This is what you experience. You may not have access or resources or exposure to money management, even the education or whatever. There may not be someone to give you those skill sets or talk to you about those things, and you have to learn the hard way. But I don't think it's exclusive to race. It seems like it's more just the have-nots versus the haves. Just like sometimes you'll have conversations, and we like to paint a lot of experience as a Black experience. I know plenty of Hispanic people that had that same exact experience. I know Asian people that had that same exact experience because, again, they came from a lower socioeconomic background. What we often, I feel like, equate to Black is poor. And that's not fair either.
What I hear you saying, which does make sense, is any marginalized group that is in proximity of individuals that hold power are going to always typically desire to approximate or assimilate to that culture. So that makes sense. But I hope this isn't off topic, but my question for y'all is this, and I'm thinking about something that Killer Mike did when he attempted to go to only Black-owned places, and when he began to kind of get granular and what does it mean to be black owned, he starts saying, "Oh my God, but the paper towels y'all use aren't from a black company. Oh, the products y'all use, the food you all use." And then he came to the sad conclusion that is it truly possible, if we want to go down that rabbit hole, if you will, is is it possible for us to function separate from the majority, from whiteness, I guess we can say. Like if we ideated on, okay, fine, we'll just do this Wakanda fantasy where we are just separatists and we just get granted our own land. Do we have the lumber? Do we have the electricity? Do we have the power? Do we have the resources? So I don't know if we even have
This
an
structure.
economic feasibility, a structure to even sustain this idea of having our own, so to speak. I don't know.
You're right to some degree because we're seeing that in South Africa. We're seeing that in Zimbabwe. We're
Correct.
seeing when we're kicking the colonizer out, we don't have the
Mm-hmm.
resources, the
Mm-hmm.
education, the knowledge to farm, to manufacture, to do all these things. So all
Yes.
those elements actually matter in the event that we were to be separatists. And without that, we would have just a crumbling community because everyone would default to what they know. And it's not that they want it to be like that. They don't know anything different. They don't have the tools or the resources or the education to do something different. It's almost like you have to be strategic if you were to even do something like that to ensure that you're gaining that knowledge and you know what needs to be played out, what moves need to be made, who needs to be able to do what, because before you even go off to do something like that,
Mm-hmm.
you would
Mm-hmm.
need that information to go about that. But it makes me think about too, when you see now you're starting to see white settlements and you're seeing them to go segregate for themselves. And I've just been curious with how that's going to pan out for them. Just like, and they often aren't the most educated white people either. So it's just like, oh, good luck with that. You guys just, hey, you'll just have your non-seasoning. We're not bothered. Like no one's hurt or anything like that. Enjoy yourselves. Good luck with that.
But we know
Yeah,
that
that's
white
all.
folks historically have not been educated. I mean,
Nope.
and they knew they weren't educated. They weren't invested in their education. What they were invested in is not having to compete. They don't
Absolutely.
deny that we're intelligent. They don't deny our brilliance. They, in fact, know. I mean, you don't go steal a country, a continent of non-intelligent people. What it is we say, no, 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 no. You were never designed to rise up for us to compete against you in the first place. So that's why we're trying to roll. Well, they're trying to roll all these things back because they're saying, no, like we know we can't compete against you.
Why would it be, does it have to be a competition? I mean, if you were gonna,
That's
I
how they
think we
see it because
could
they're
do,
like-minded.
I think we could do our own community and be self-sufficient, if we
I don't
wanted
think
to.
so. How?
I
So,
mean,
I think
what was
they're
Black Wall Street then? What was Black Wall Street?
Black
What
Wall
would you
Street was just
consider that?
everyday black folks just kind of pooling together, and they had their own banks. So think about it too, though they didn't have a choice. They couldn't. They had toilets that flushed. They had real plumbing.
right,
White
there's
folks
a lot of
had
infrastructure
that.
that they had that we cannot
But they
recreate.
had that. They
Correct.
were
Correct.
carpenters. They were former slaves. And think about it too. A lot of former slaves. They did a lot of the. They did the building. They did this. They did a lot of things. And even too, they were and part of like some of the science innovations and things like that. So it's like those people were all there and they were all working together within a community. But a lot of times when we see our communities, they're few, far and few, where we're actually seeing just predominantly black communities where we're all doing well. They absolutely exist. There's just not as many of them. And then the other time when you do see them, when it's not that scenario, they're not really doing well. More or less, too, it's the redlining. We've done everything to keep those communities down. We draw out the taxes. We change how things are set up, the infrastructure. We're gentrifying. We're trying to move them out. We're trying to outprice them. Even like, for example, I grew up in Evanston. Evanston was actually predominantly black until white folks started coming. They liked the area. They liked the land. That's even why they had that reparation set up for them or whatever, because they were basically pushed out. And even too, Evanston's so expensive, it's hard for black folks to even live there. You have to be doing really well in order to stay there because of the taxes and the cost, but some of the best schools are there. Historically, they've done everything to push us out of places in order to take over those places.
I don't
But
think they would. I don't think it's possible because I don't think they would allow it.
I mean
But
that's a fair
yeah,
assessment. Would they
because
want that?
no, they wouldn't
Well, yeah,
because
I'm not talking. I didn't say they wouldn't burn it down after you built it, but I mean, we could
I
put it
think
up.
they
Like we
definitely
have
will
the funny,
come.
like you have Michael Jordans and LeBrons and Kanye. It's enough money out there to make some noise as far as like putting
Yeah,
our
money
own
wise is
stuff out there.
there,
But we,
but I'm sorry. Go
But
ahead,
keep
Charles.
in mind, though, too, it wasn't Michael Jordan's and LeBron's that made Tulsa, Oklahoma, or Black Wall Street. It was the butcher, the teacher, the doctor, the lawyer. These were everyday
I mean,
average
yeah, and I'm saying like
came together
look at where these
that we
dudes
didn't
are
need.
at now. So we could go way beyond it. That's the point I'm making. We could go way beyond it because of the resources that we have available to us. But that you would have to have unity on a level that I don't think we could ever get to.
But
You know
But
some
what I
of
it
them
mean?
doesn't matter.
have.
I was just going to say, the thing is this. I think that what we're thinking of is we're imagining a world where we have we have amassed this amount of dollars in hand. And to your point, I heard you say when we were talking about the example of Tulsa, those economic opportunities or those resource opportunities are long gone. There is no scenario in 2026 and beyond that I can imagine where money will not filter through white hands. He just won't allow it to happen. It's like for us to be totally separate means that our dollars will never, ever, ever funnel through his hands. And there's just no way possible. I mean, when you think about global economics, money filters through everyone's hands. But we are in a uniquely oppressive situation in this country where not only will that not be allowed to happen, but we won't even be allowed to sustain ourselves. At least other communities are able to sustain themselves, but we independently are not allowed to by virtue of education, but also just because there's just active destabilization. So, that's just how I look at it and see it. But if we look at history, what I'm saying kind of rings true.
I don't think white people let it happen. I don't. I think that because it empowered too many black people, and I just don't believe that they would
Correct.
burn it down. And I think they would tear everything up and just scorch it. They wouldn't allow it to happen.
No.
Even with the funds, even if we came up with our own militia, they just wouldn't allow it. They just wouldn't allow it. And then also
That's
too,
a no right there.
when you do tribal stuff, like when you separate, right? They say this is mine, this is yours, right? So even the cost of medicine, if we don't have it already, it'll be sky high for us. Even the cost of lumber, if we don't own it already, it'll be sky high when they steal the Negroes. It's just that tribal mentality,
I mean, you got to get water and energy first. Like,
Yeah.
Right.
Where we gonna get it from?
Right.
Exactly.
Where do you get water? Where do you get energy?
Right.
And where are you getting food from? And if you can't
Exactly.
get those three plus security, like those are the primary
where do they get it from?
building blocks.
Where do they get it from?
But they
They
own
own
it. They took it.
Who is it? Who?
Yeah, they took the land. But even too, when you amass wealth like that to some degree, the kind of wealth that you're talking about, like you amass that on individualism. Like I think the other day,
Yeah.
Well, yeah,
like
that's what I'm
it
saying.
was a conversation about Jay-Z. And it was kind of said that he was DEI, and I was like, no, he's actually one of them. In fact, he's a problem. To me, he's enemy number one. He's up there with them because of how much wealth he's amassed. You cannot get that kind of wealth without stepping on the backs of other people or the marginalized people. It's not possible. So even too, what I want, if I were to say I'm going to go off and I'm going to start a community that's black centered or that's going to be full, black people, would I want his contribution? Would he even want to do that? Because his money comes from white folks. Even when we talk about LeBron, his money comes from a white man.
But they still contribute to their own community.
But in essence, though, but again, he would be nothing with it. They weren't paying him. Then what? If that money were to be cut off at a certain point.
But that's for all of us then, right?
I mean, to some degree, yes. But we're saying that we're focused, we're centering, but we're also talking about, well, how do we avoid it touching white people? Saying that everything that they have, in essence, they're like gladiators. That's a coliseum. So even though they're wealthy, they're gladiators. You know what I mean? They have these white men that are puppets. They own all the things. They're the things. They're controlling the things. They're the puppet masters. And they can take it in this country, they can take whatever they want. And even too, if we were to even go deeper, I would say the Zionists, but I want the show to air. So I'm gonna dial it back a little bit because I don't want you to kick off YouTube. But there's definitely a percentage of people that are running everything everywhere, and it's actually very documented. And there are even, like, due to the Information Act, there are heavy documentation with the CIA about the people that are actually running the country and running the world. And they don't want any kind of unity, not just unity among Black folks. They don't want unity of.
When I'm saying that, I'm not talking about like money not touching white people's hands. That's not what I'm on. What I'm on is this: like, okay, let's say you got 2 or 3 hoopers that come from a place like where I'm from, Robbins. Okay, they get money. They get enough money from a shoe deal to, buy damn near the whole city. And fix it up, and that's not. But they wouldn't have that money, and still be able to buy Escalades and buy the big. Like they would. They wouldn't sacrifice that lifestyle to do the community. If guys was willing to sacrifice that lifestyle to uplift the community, it'd be done easily. I mean, they get $20 million for doing a damn commercial. That's not even no work.
So maybe I'm missing, but I think the point is that no matter what, you know what I mean, money is going to have to go to white people's hands. Like, we don't own power companies.
They make
we don't
money.
Own the what? But
when it come out that machine, as soon as it come out the machine, it's going to be somebody white going to touch it. As soon as the thing cut it off, it's a white hand to touch it and put it wherever it's going. So we can't avoid that.
What this means is that we can have the facade, the veneer of a Black community. Fine. All right. If y'all all want to look like each other, fine. Have at it. Go ahead. But at the end of the day,
the day gotta end.
Yeah, I feel like that's just the rules of the game, y'all. They set up the rules a long time ago. We're fighting to change them. But we're still stuck within some of these constructs that we can't change in the moment. It's going to take many, many decades or centuries to truly achieve the equity that we've been looking for decades. We still got to fight to make these changes, but they're generational.
Exactly. That's what I mean.
It's a unity thing, man. I mean, Doc, why would you give up? You're not poor. Why would you give up the little bit you got? And you see dudes with way more not giving up none of theirs. I mean, it's a unity thing, because like I said, I mean, we have enough money now. Like, we're not back in the 50s where it's 2 or 3 millionaires. It's a lot of Black millionaires. A lot. I mean, you go to Atlanta alone. Look at the amount of Black millionaires.
What's the percentage?
Giving money isn't the solution in my mind. If you give a man,
I'm not saying giving. I'm saying building the community, build up the community. I mean, do more than build a gym. It's got to be more than that. You know what I mean? Like, instead of taking your money, hoarding it, and going off, and I understand why they do that, because you couldn't live in the community with your people with all that money. It wouldn't work. But I understand, but I'm saying, like, you could put, if all these athletes that make all this unreal amounts of money put their money together, they could do stuff. That's not chump change what these dudes make. I mean, when you making 30-50 million a year, that's not chump change. These dudes put their money together, they could do stuff.
But that seed almost has to be planted, right? That's a mindset. That's a mindset. That's a shift, right? Because a lot of times too, folks, they're just trying to get out of their current situation. They're just trying to get out of their struggle, their poverty, or whatever, right? So, but there would almost, before you even get to that part, or somewhere in there, would have to be a moment where a seed would be planted, where at that point, when they did get into that position, they would know what they need to do, and that seed isn't necessarily always planted. So that's the problem too. So it isn't necessarily always about money. It's about mindset. Well, now that you're in the position, what would you do with it? What would you like to do with it? Do you have the knowledge to are you even thinking that far ahead? Because even too, it's like, to me, I would think that while we're saying that, my biggest thing isn't necessarily the fact that it's unity among us, I think the biggest factor, if we go back to maybe like someone like Fred Hampton, it's unity among people. Like I like to see everybody win. I want to see black folks win. I want to see Asian, whatever your lane is. I'm not jealous of you. I'm not hating on you. Do your thing. When I see representation of people of other ethnicities, I'm happy to see that they deserve to have that. Glad you have that. That being said, to me, the bigger power is really the elite. It's not even a black or white thing. Because even when we talk about white supremacy, white folks will stomp on another white person in the event that they're in the way of that. We're seeing that fascism don't give a fuck about who, like what ethnicity you are, whatever. If you're in the way of the powers that be or what their master plan is, nothing else matters, and you will be eliminated. So unity has to, like, it almost has to be broader, but again, it's the mindset, it's the education. To some degree, it is indoctrination. Like it's bigger than just, well, because I got this money. Now that I got this money, because I could have all this money, but I might be very surface level. I might be thinking of the right now momentarily or what I want to do. I may not, and my people might just be my cousins, my kinfolk, everyone, like, my cousin, this person, that person. But even too, I know what it's like also to carry that burden of having to take care of your family and take on all these roles. But that's why people do like these outside things. So you'd rather start a little charity. No, you didn't. You didn't buy your cousin a car that they feel like they deserve, they wanted, because you're tired of people with their hands out. You doing the best you can do. Even when we talk about money, I recently, and I didn't know this, but only 6% of black people make over six figures. I had no idea. I thought that was like the thing. Everyone was doing that. And it was like, are you serious? So it was kind of like
Well, that's what I was telling you in the pod with the black dudes. Like when I was telling you, like it's only a certain amount of dudes, even in that even realm. And I think I was like 80,000 or something. Like it's only a certain amount of dudes even in that realm. It's not a lot.
I just assumed it was more, but also to my social circle. I'm in IT. My other peers are, so it's like even the black folks I know, we all do the same stuff for work or whatever. So it's like I just thought I assumed incorrectly. But that goes to show too that like maybe we're not necessarily where we think we are or where we should be, but that doesn't mean that we're behind or we can't take that path or go where we need to go. But the question is like, where are we going? And where are we going at, I guess, as a nation? Because at the end of the day, like we have our black problems, but we also have the same problems every other American has too. It's not, we don't get to just separate ourselves. Oh, well, that's I'm black. It always impacts us. Politics always impacts us. What's going on always impacts us. And even though we may not understand how it impacts us, does not mean it doesn't impact us. Just like if something benefits us, we don't have to know how it benefits us for it to benefit us. And I say that because I always think about being a part of an empire and all the stuff that we go out and do in the world and how it's like, it's very harmful, but to some degree it benefits us as Americans, even if we don't agree with it or we don't like it. There's something about that benefits us, whether it's, our cell phones, the technology that's used, or the resources that are used for our cell phones. A lot of that stuff comes from the Congo. And for me, I have a big thing on foreign policy. So I'm always frustrated with the things that we're going around doing or the companies that we're advocating for, because a lot of these wars aren't really about Americans. They're about these companies that are paying these politicians. So they're going over doing stuff, just like Venezuela, going over there, taking their president. But now all of a sudden you're sending oil to Israel.
Israel, yeah.
And they did say, the vice president of Venezuela said this was Israel. And then they're like, no. And we haven't heard anything, but somehow there's an oil deal, which means none of this was about sovereignty or helping or liberating the people. And when you talk about liberation should be for everybody. It shouldn't be just for me. And I don't need to be in a position of a colonizer. Liberation should be, if you're genuinely about a movement or something, liberation shouldn't just be about you or people that look like you. It should be everybody, because at the end of the day, if it's one person, it can be all persons.
I think that, you make a good point too. One of my favorite civil rights heroes is Fred Hampton. And I was talking to my son and I was like, hey, if you ever notice that, so like when Malcolm X was preaching, white devils and keeping everything separate, they didn't care. But the minute he came back from Mecca and he realized that, hey, you know what I mean? It's not a white black thing. It's more of a us them thing. And he started preaching unity like Fred Hampton did. Fred Hampton brought together all the poor whites, poor blacks, poor Mexicans, and everything. Black Panther Party did the same thing. That's when they die. That's when they get assassinated. That's the minute that you see it. When you see that
the most dangerous thing that there can be.
They don't care if you're preaching hate. They don't care because you keep it a split. You keep it that divide. You know what I mean? But the minute you preach unity, that's when they come get you. And that's what happened with Malcolm X. That's what happened with Fred Hampton. The same thing that happened with Martin Luther King. You see that with a lot of our leaders.
Can you have a black community without leadership?
No.
No.
No, I don't think so neither. I think it's possible. And I don't think we have.
I think we need to redefine what leadership means.
Like, you mean like our own president, or
Barack is leading.
Of our own president, then there's no rules. Like we just make up the rules as we go.
And I don't mean as president. I mean we have to have leaders like Barack in the community. You know, now I'm not even talking about at a presidential level. Thinkers. You know what I mean? He's you know, he did a good job, man. I was listening to him talk today, man. I still think he should just ask Trump for a fair one, man. I don't like all this Martin Luther King, man, turn the cheek, man. I think he should just ask Trump for a fair one. But I mean,
I think that's a failure of the party right there.
Why?
It's because I feel like they're too passive. They're too passive. They're too moderate. Like we watch one group completely manipulate every law, everything possible, and we're always playing by the rules, or even playing by the corporations that have bought us. It's just we're really just not seeing any movement. And if someone's taking 4 steps back and you can barely take 1 step forward, we're always going to be behind in the end.
But you know that's generational. That's the old way of thinking. Like the new Democratic representatives and their thought process, their line of thinking is more forward, more progressive, and hopefully, you know, takes the party in a new direction if the people that need to retire step out of the way.
But they're not going to step out of the way because power.
And that's why the party is failing.
Let me ask you this. Okay. I mean, I don't mind living around white people. Would you on the panel? No, I mind my business.
Like you see her body language.
Yeah, I did, and I'm just being honest. I mean, I go about my business. My brother-in-law tell you I mind my own business. I do my thing. I don't even care if you live next to me. But what I'm saying is, what the question I wanted to know is, would that be something you guys would be open to? Would you want to live in an all-black community?
I definitely would. I look. So I came from a neighborhood in Joliet was all black, and then we moved to Robbins, and then we ended up moving out to Frankfurt, and we moved out here for better schools and safety. But we got that, but we gave up something. We gave up something culturally, and with our kids, we could see it. You know what I mean? I could see it within my kids. They don't understand certain things. For example, we all know if a car ride down the streets with the lights off, you better get low, get to moving around. My kids would be like, you need directions? You know what I mean? They don't understand. They don't understand what it means in certain things and stuff like that. But also, too, in the school system, right, all kids want to do is be accepted. And when you went to a predominantly white school, you don't get that all the time. You don't get the fairness. You don't get these things. So looking back, me and my wife we should have moved into a more diverse neighborhood. We did look. But some of the schools were so terrible. The taxes were so high and the schools were so terrible. So education-wise, they got it. Some of the cultural stuff, we got it through our family and stuff like that. But they're still missing certain things because they didn't grow up in certain environments. So if I could do it over, I would definitely move into a predominantly black. It don't have to be all black, predominantly black.
I would be okay with it. I think that if we can agree to doing the hard work of unlearning certain behaviors, then yes. But if we think about it, if we think critically, Black people at their worst are poor imitators of white folks. Because all of the violent behaviors, all of the violent patterns, that's white folks. Who were the drive-by shooters? Who were the drug dealers? Who were the murderers? Who were the kidnappers? We're poor imitators of them. So if we could learn that our inherent state of being is actually goodness, is actually community, is actually generosity, then we will see a mental shift. where we wouldn't be projecting all this toxicity, because that toxicity is not ours. It's really whiteness. Like, listen, my Wi-Fi hates this conversation, clearly. But nevertheless, oh God, yeah, it's never acted this bad before. But my point still is, yes, I love Black people, um, love being around Black people. I lead a statewide civil rights organization. First Black person is 35-year history to do so. And I see the look of utter offense that I am the CEO of this legacy institution. And I love it. I love it. I love walking into spaces and halls. And I love walking down to Springfield, walking into spaces that my Black feet were never designed to walk into. And I wear that with honor. So, again, to answer the question in short, I'll take living with Black people all day long, because white folks are more safe in our communities than we will ever be safe in theirs. And we always have to remember that.
Yeah, I definitely wouldn't have a problem living with people like me. In fact, I would gravitate to that. You know what I mean? And it just comes from somebody that grew up. I went to a Catholic school for 8 years, and I was like one of the few Black people there. And it was rough. It was hard. If it wasn't for my mom and my father teaching me, who I was, I probably would have been lost. I remember going there. So when that happens, when you go to when you go to a school like that, you don't learn about your history, right? You learn that your history began with slavery. That's what I learned. When all the white kids there, they're learning that they were kings and queens and all these great people and everything like that. But here I am, I'm just a slave, and I can't tell you what that does to a Black person's psyche, right? And it took my mom and my father, they're both educators. They had to teach me about the kings and queens of Africa, the past, and everything like that. No, your ancestors were royalty. So, I think that living in a Black space would actually amplify certain things like that, and that sense of community, like my man Mick was saying. I feel like it's lost, because I live in a neighborhood that's predominantly white, but I know that the Black people in my block, we all stick together, we all know each other, we all hang out, we are together. So I think that's I would live in a Black neighborhood. Yes, absolutely.
You, Doc?
I'm international. My parents immigrated here in the 60s for education, better life. Y'all know I'm Nigerian. And I live in Houston, and Houston is one of the most international, cities in the country, where there's a lot of diversity. So the things that the question poses something that's not, truly plausible. What I chose, I'll tell you what I chose. I chose to live in a gated community that's about 20% Black, 25% white, 15% Hispanic, 20% Asian. It's a very diverse gated community. We walk around, we know the majority of our neighbors. And for me, I think it's ideal. I think that having diversity is wonderful. I can't imagine, if there was such a thing as a predominantly Black neighborhood of similar safety and status, it'd be something to consider. It's not something that really is around here in Houston. There's a lot of predominantly white neighborhoods, and again, we chose, not to be in that type of situation. That we chose diversity intentionally. It didn't, happen that way. We built and we chose it that way. So out of the dichotomy that you're offering, definitely more minorities is better. That's what I would choose. But I feel like balance, like there's a lot of value in having a balanced diversity, just for more exposure. You made the analogy, if you see a car going down with no lights, what do? You want that type of street smarts, but you also want to know if the markets are crashing, are you selling or buying? You want to be in the group that knows that that's when you want to be buying. So you want that type of street smarts too, Wall Street smarts. So the diversity, is to try to get a little bit of everything so that you get as much the intelligence you need to equip the kids with a better future.
And I just want to say, you know what? I agree wholeheartedly with that, because I think that part of the reason why I was able to get as far as I'm able to get was because I grew up in a very diverse neighborhood. And so yeah, I agree with you
Yeah,
wholeheartedly.
that's me too. That's what I was saying. I don't mind the diversity. Like, I mean, because we're not gonna do too much interacting anyway. As you as being my neighbor, I might say what's up, and I'm back in the house. So like, we ain't gonna be partying together anyway. So I don't mind the diversity. Um, it, it's kind of hard. I mean, I love my people, but I don't want to be around just them. I don't mind the diversity in my life because it's taught me a lot of stuff. Knowing a lot of different people and a lot of different cultures has taught me a lot of different stuff. And I wouldn't want to give up that knowledge just to say, I'm with my people and nobody else. That's I don't know if that's a prosperous community anyway. I don't think that I think you got to have some type of diversity. Like, everybody brings something different to the game.
Well,
You know what I mean?
Hold on, because I think are we saying that Black communities can't provide financial education? Are we saying that? Sounds a little bit like that. That's not true. That's just not true. There are a lot of influential Black neighborhoods, even in the South suburbs, where you got doctors, lawyers, dentists in the same community. So it's just not true. I mean, you could find that. From my experience living in a white community, it wasn't good for my kids. In my humble opinion, it wasn't good. I mean, I got along with my neighbors. They were good people, but the camaraderie wasn't there like in a Black community, which I grew up in. It's just the camaraderie wasn't there. The kids playing with each other, it wasn't the same. In order for my kids to play with them, their parents felt like they had to know that my kids had to prove that they were good kids first. Mm-hmm. In a Black community I grew up in, you had to prove you were bad. Then the parents was like, no. There's a difference between the two. All kids want to do is be accepted. And in this community I was in, might not be the same for everybody, but it was tough for my kids. It was tough in the beginning.
And you're right, Mick, but that it's a double-edged sword. You had to make a choice. So right, like, do you feel like you made the better choice moving them from where you moved them from? I mean, you can't like moving them from where you moved them from to moving them there, that was the best choice.
Yeah. But again, I wish I had if I knew what I was getting into, I would have did a lot more research, took my time, and I would have found that perfect community. I thought I did that until we got here. Then I started to get schools. The education was great.
Yeah, but I told y'all that's the only place I've ever experienced racism in my life, and I'm 52 years old. The two places he moved to is the only places I've ever experienced racism in my life. The
school was good, but like they treated my kids. They tried to treat my kids differently. My wife had to go up there and talk to them and show our faces and things like that.
Mick, I feel like you did what was best for you and your family, man. And I get it, man. You want your kids to go to good schools, and and sometimes sometimes there's a trade-off for that, I guess. That's what my mom literally took me. I went to Catholic school for 8 years of my life. And my mom, she actually worked at the school that helped pay the tuition because it was so expensive, and I was in there, and it was a trade-off, but luckily I had two parents that taught me about myself, but I wasn't taught me about who I was and who my people were, and that was something that I wasn't getting from that school. So you know what I mean. So I feel you, man. I get what you're saying. You out there, you're just trying to do what's best for your children. That's honorable, brother. I know we're gonna hate you for that. We're gonna hate you for that. But I do feel like, for me and Shannon, growing up in Park Forest and the co-ops and everything like that, it was a very diverse group of people, and I do feel like I feel like even though it wasn't just all Black, I felt like there was community, especially in our co-op. I remember we would all go out there. I'd have white parents, they looking out for us. We got Black parents looking out for us. You couldn't go certain places, do certain things, or some of the kids were bad or whatever. There was a community. I think that's more of a, how can I put it? Okay, I got a great example. I went upstairs one day, right? so times are changing. So I went upstairs one day. My son was playing on his PlayStation. I'm like, "Oh, son, what are you playing?" I said, "It looks like Monopoly." He's like, "Yeah, I'm playing Monopoly with all my friends." And I'm like, "Oh." I said, "That David and all them?" He's like, "Yeah." I said, "Well, why don't y'all just come over here? I'll order y'all some pizzas. Y'all can play on the, play Monopoly like that." They're like, "Oh, we don't do that, Dad." And so I feel like, a lot of that has to do with not that the community is gone or anything like that. It's more with the fact that children and the times are changing now where we don't have that. Everything's virtual now. I mean, my 12-year-old's upstairs playing this game called Gorilla Tag, but it's just tag in his room virtually. And I'm like, "Son, what are you playing?" He's like, "Oh, we're playing tag. You used to play that, Dad?" I'm like, "Yeah, we used to play that outside with everybody." Kids just aren't doing that anymore with the technology and stuff. So I think sometimes that a lot of the things that we see that we used to have, going outside, riding our bikes till, the street lights came on and stuff like that, kids just aren't doing it anymore because times are changing, man, And so, yeah.
Yeah, but times got to change. We got to make times change for the better, man. It can't change for the worse.
But I mean, you
I
can't stop
think
it.
I was going to say, I think, I wouldn't trade my diverse upbringing. Clearly, Rashawn and me grew up down the street from each other. But as I'm an adult looking back, I believe that my diverse experience taught me to be subversive. And that's for good, right? Because being the first of many is a very lonely space, right? It's always lonely being the first black exec, the first black this, the first black that. It's lonely. But I take what I am given in service of the uplifting of my community. I think about COVID, right? Leading COVID vaccinations and testing efforts in communities that were the last to receive those resources. All of those things that I've been able to do with my platforms. So I think that we miss a key component of how we describe education. And unfortunately, regardless of what our positioning may be in our communities, we are still lacking a fundamental knowledge of self. And I think that that will only come from being amongst each other and excavating that which was stolen from us. And again, that is identity. When we think about the success of other countries, other communities, and we say things like, "Oh, look at Sweden, look at Norway." Well, they're all white, right? They have a very homogenous community. So, of course, those things work. But I think that this country somewhat holds evidence that integration doesn't really fully work in the way that we thought it would.
No, absolutely.
Um,
Oh, go ahead. I'm sorry.
no, you go ahead.
No, I was gonna say I agree with that. I think that when we went into it, I don't think, like you said, we were prepared for what was about to happen. I think that we saw that we wanted equality, and like morally that is extremely that was right. But I also feel like that during that time it became, I don't know how to say it. We lost a part of ourselves in a way, trying to reach out and get that type of equality that we wanted to. And we lost a big part of us. But I think that's I don't know how to explain it. Like, I feel like that it's sad that it happened, but I do think that some of the things that in the quest for equality, maybe it had to happen. I don't know if I'm saying it right or the way that I want to say it. But yeah, you know what I mean? Like, maybe some of it had to happen.
It's a paradox.
It's like the gift and the curse, right?
Exactly.
Paradox.
Right.
Exactly.
Thank you. You saved me because I couldn't get it out the way I wanted to.
It's a paradox. That's what
I
it
couldn't
is,
express the way I
right?
wanted to, but yeah.
Yeah, it's we were economically contained, but we were socially oppressed, right? And now we're integrated, so we've gained access, but we've lost insulation.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah, I think though, if we're gonna build community, we should probably start with building family first. I think the lack of family, that unit, that whole, what did I call it? The nuclear family? Yeah, that the whole nuclear family that's kind of dissolving, and we got too much. I mean, on our own between people who are related to each other. So, like, if you can't even get together with the people you're related to, what's the chance of you bring together people who ain't even your blood? You know what I mean? So I think that a lot of our values, we going down a different path, and I don't know if it's a good one.
I think the first step is education and knowledge. I think then everything falls after that. You know what I mean? I think that you got to begin with educating people and sharing that knowledge, and then the other things can be worked on. I think the first step is knowledge. I get what you're saying with the nuclear family and everything like that, but I think you go a lot further with information. This is an information age. And
What kind of schooling is you gonna have? What kind of schooling do you have if you don't have that family unit, that whole your choices? You see how Mick made a choice for his family. That what I mean. You don't have that if you throwing a single mother in there. You don't put that as a factor into the whole education, where you grow up, how you grow up. That's all a factor of your family first before you even go outside to get an
And
education.
honestly, the real education comes from the family. What they put in the schools is not really up to us. All of us aren't able to dictate exactly what type of information is being passed on through the schoolhouse, but we control what we tell our kids here in the household. So the family part of it is key because that's where the real education is coming from.
And you could grow up to be a hell of a man, dude, with no school education whatsoever, just by your moral, your moral conduct and the way he was raised.
I
There's a
think
lot
that the
of dudes with
parenting
no
is.
school that they're great men.
I agree with you, Charles. I think parenting is crucial. I think over a long period of time, parenting has decreased. I'm in childcare. I own 2 daycare centers, and I see it. And I see fathers who don't show up at all, and it's sad. You can see the difference between 2-parent households and one. And you can see a mother trying, and then you can see some that don't, So I think parenting is crucial. I don't know how you get it back to good parenting. I don't know. I don't think you can put no legislation in place to make people good parents. So I really don't know how you start or make that happen outside of your parents being good. And like you said, Doc, your first teachings are from your parents. And if you see your parents together, normally you would, you would do the same thing. You would marry and you would have kids, and they would do so on and so forth. So I really don't know how to solve the problem.
I guess what I'm saying, I'm not saying that parenting is important. I'm saying that you got to talk about right. So what I was trying to say is, like, when education brings wealth, families with more wealth tend to stay together. You know what I mean? And so that's what I was kind of trying to allude to. Like, okay, if you want to have a 2-family household, well, then you're going to need education, because education brings that type of wealth where that happens more often. That's all I was trying to say. I'm not taking away anything from. I grew up in a 2-parent household. My kids are growing up in a 2-parent household, and my mom, my father were both teachers. And they said the same thing you said, Mick. They could tell the difference. The ones that struggle and everything like that.
Yeah.
But if we want to really make that change, and you were saying, like, I don't know how we make that change. That's why that was my point. I was like, education and knowledge, to gain, so that way we can move forward and up our economic status to where, like, two people, like, when you have a family that's making a specific amount of money, you see that the marriage rates and stuff like that also go up. That's all I was saying.
Right.
That's because marriage for them, to some degree, some of it's a business decision, right? So what's good for the
Absolutely.
business if we're not necessarily satisfied. I do think that a lot of it does start at home from education wise. Like, even for me, both of my daughters are in college. One goes to a HBCU, one goes to a PWI. And I'll be full transparency. There's a reason behind that. There was one I felt like struggled with identity. She struggled with what she thought Black looked like because she didn't struggle. So she assumed she wasn't Black enough, in certain scenarios. So for me, having her in an HBCU, that was really important for her to see that Black isn't monolithic. It doesn't look like this or look like that. it just is. You know what I mean? You could do this way, you could do it that way. It doesn't make you less black or anything like that. My other one, she's very confident, secure in herself, so she could go to a PWI. I'm not worried about her identity or her being lost in anything like that, because it all starts at home. One thing I remember, one of the books my father put in my hand was about Benjamin Banneker. He was a inventor. My dad was always big on history. Ironically, my mother's white, my stepmother's white, but my father was very big on Black history. I'm not sure if he just thought it would get lost somewhere. Even growing up in Evanston, the area I grew up in was predominantly Black. My stepmom was the only white woman on the block. And we were kind of on the outskirts because the wealthier you were, you lived deeper into it, closer to the lake shore, etc. But one of the biggest things for us was or for me, is what you teach your kids at home, what you instill in them at home, what my father taught me. And we don't always see eye to eye, but I even think one of the things he told me, and I've never forgot, it was that each generation is weaker and wiser. They have access to all the information, but none of the discipline, none of the execution. And I carry that with me everywhere I go. I think of that. I think about how I execute, how I do things. And I'm also a product of divorce. My children are a product of divorce, but I've never let that stop me from making sure that they had the things they needed, or even had the stimulation that they needed. Was I always the best I wanted to be? Not necessarily. But did I do my best? Yeah. To me, I think I did. Both my kids they've been on the Dean's List, President's List every semester since they started college. They're going to leave there with no debt because they haven't had to take out student loans. And they're in college. I didn't get to go to college. I did maybe a semester or two, kind of dilly-daddle around or whatever. I was lucky enough to get into IT early on before certain things required degrees or, certificates were enough, or even just learning how to do things, learning how to code, stuff like that. I was fortunate. But everyone doesn't have those opportunities. But that being said, everything is, I think, for me, it comes back to exposure, environment, opportunity, and then what you're instilling in your children day in and day out. And that's what they go out and take out into the world. So even we were talking about diversity. I've been in all Black communities. I've been in diverse communities. I've seen my kids struggle in areas where they were around people that didn't look like them. They weren't sure what that meant, or if they and then when they got around Black people, well, I'm not Black enough. I don't, like my daughter one day, she's like, well, we've never seen, it was Boys in the Hood. Well, baby, you're really not missing anything. Watch it, but that don't make you less Black. Okay, so come from me. I'm like, okay, I can go ahead and watch it. I thought 5 heartbeats was enough. I'm sorry, I didn't realize. But a lot of it is identity. It is what we instill at home. I think even when we're in those diverse environments, there are benefits. I remember I had a white director. She taught me how to really get the best out of my credit card usage. You know what I mean? She's like, no, you got to get the rewards, this and this. But then we take that, we got to make sure we're not gatekeeping. Because what I have seen though too is that you'll see that one lone Black person be adjacent to whiteness. They'll be in a position, but then they don't take anyone or share anything. It's almost like they gatekeep sometimes.
Right.
So it's like you just want to keep them all to you, because maybe too, that's the thing about when we talk about community or unity. Sometimes we have a tendency to say what Black don't like, what we don't want within our community, what we don't want, like who don't fit the criteria, and that's not fair. But we see it all the time, and we see that it's a form of classism, whether we like to admit it or not.
I just want to make one thing about you saying about how you got one daughter going to HBCU, the other one going there, about identity. It was crazy because when I got out of 8th grade from the Catholic school, had a scholarship where I go to this school called Marian Catholic, which was another Catholic school for high school. And my father was like, absolutely not. He's been around all these white people his whole life. He needs to be around. He needs to be around some of his own people. And that's why I went to Shannon. That's why I went to Rich East. My father made me go. And I'm glad, and I'm so glad that he did, because at that time I didn't know who I was. You know what I mean? Like I didn't know. I hadn't been around my own people, and so that was crazy. And one other thing too, I like what you said about gatekeeping. That's one of the reasons why I love Dr. Adili. That's my brother up there, because he puts out a lot of it. He put the knowledge that he's gained. He puts it back out there, and he does things with the community. He's written books and everything like that. And I feel like when you said that gatekeeping thing, that I thought of Odili, because that's what we need more of in our community. People like you, brother, and just want to give you your flowers there for a minute. But
we're all talking about education, and like you said, it comes from many places. But it's been said on here earlier tonight, our money education didn't come from the school. The schools aren't teaching us about money, how to use it, how to make it work for us. That's coming from family, friends, family businesses, people in our
There's no
lives that are
entrepreneur
introducing us
class in college at all. None.
No, not at all. So again, the family part of it is key because that's where a lot of the life lessons, the money lessons are coming from. And definitely, it's important to me personally, family wise, to put this information back out there in a way that people have access to it. I appreciate you, Rashawn.
Even when I think about it, I was taught about index funds and S&P and Roths when I got into the workforce. When I would just be bold enough to ask the finance department, "Hey, what should I do with my money?" And they would just say, "Oh, let me show you." Right? Because what I've learned is, how can I put it? I think white families have what is more of an invisible curriculum of wealth, if that makes sense, right? They're taught how to leverage credit. They're taught how to use debt strategically. They're taught how to invest early. They're taught about appreciating assets, not depreciating. Your car is a depreciating asset, but it makes you feel good, right? So they're taught those
They're having
things.
those discussions too open.
Yes,
Regularly.
right. They're exactly.
Supposed to be secret. Like,
Yes.
I'm not supposed to ask nobody. Like you're like, hey, I'm sorry, I
Yeah.
didn't know this was a secret.
So that's the whole thing about
Well,
um
those are disciplines, like I was saying in
yes.
the beginning, how millionaires have certain disciplines that they stick to no matter what, and that's what dang, she going on here, but that's what
Like
basically
we in now.
they teach their kids. They teach their kids different disciplines that are like it doesn't even become something you're teaching them anymore. It's like a habit, part of your gene pool, so to speak, like if you look at the majority, like when I was growing up, the majority of white kids going to college was just part of the program. Like that was like natural progression. Whereas for us, like going to college was a big deal. Like past parents in my age group didn't go to college. So like a lot of my friends were the first people to go to college in their family, or maybe their mom was the first and they're the second. Like this was the start of people, of color being abundant in college campuses. Like that was a new thing. But it became, but for them, it's natural. It's just the habit, it's the natural flow of life. You know what I mean? Them going to college and having those, like I said, those different disciplines it's in their DNA. It's just the natural flow of life. And we have to get to a point where we make good things like that, good decisions and stuff, part of our DNA and part of our natural flow of life, which has to start at home, what you're taught. Like you get a
I
good
think
family unit at home and you can get those teachings and mature from there.
I,
Go ahead.
I know we're
What I
about I know we're about to end real quick, but I think that we're still recovering from the years of oppression, and I think that's why you're seeing it that way. I don't think it's their DNA or anything like that. They've had a 400-year head start on us, man.
Listen.
But what I was going to also say too is this: that we've got to think about what future looks like. Look at AI. I don't hear black folks talking about AI. We're about to be left behind yet again because we continue to hold on to an old paradigm of success. And we see the workforce, especially with black women, are getting terminated left and right. And we're still encouraging our young people to go into, you know, education opportunities that may not even be a thing by time, probably before they're 40. I have a lot of PhDs and master degrees on my staff. Love them. I hire them all the time. They are way more educated than me and make exponentially less. And it's because they've been taught this is the pathway of success, this very narrow pathway. And I see what they do as an asset in the moment, but incredibly impractical moving forward. So I think too, we need to begin to prepare our black community for what is coming next and shifting what education looks like. Also, too, we've forgotten the importance of trades. The plumber. Rich folks need a plumber, an electrician,
Carpenter.
HVAC. Like, why did we abandon those things? Because again, we wanted to look polished and we wanted to have the proximity and we wanted to say, oh, my baby is a lawyer, my baby is a doctor. And those are good things, those are wonderful things. But we forgot that the millionaires of our Black communities were funeral directors. You know, look at the Leak family, for instance. We forgot that there are so many other ways to accumulate wealth in our communities that can come from what we call the blue collar, so to speak. So I don't want us to lose track of that also.
Absolutely. So yeah,
Right.
Cello, what's the end question you got for us, man? I know you like to do
Man, I
closing
think we
there,
done
brother.
covered everything today, man. I usually save one. I don't think I got one for today, but I appreciate you guys coming out. It's always a conversation to be had. So I mean, we can keep talking about this for hours. I know you got to go, Doctor. I appreciate you coming out, helping us out. And that's the show for tonight. We out.
Thanks for having me.